Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, my fellow Republicans and fellow Americans, first let me just express my heartfelt thanks for the honor that you've given me, the opportunity to run on our party's national ticket with a great leader like Ronald Reagan. On behalf of Barbara, the rest of the Bush family, all I can say is that we're overwhelmed and grateful for your expression of confidence. With a deep sense of commitment, I accept your nomination to serve as our party's candidate for Vice President on a ticket headed by the leader of our party and the next President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. I accept. I enthusiastically support our platform, and I pledge to you my total dedication and energies in a united effort to see to it that next January 20th, Ronald Reagan becomes our nation's 40th president, and that a bright new era will begin for an America in the decade of this 80s. We need change. Because of Ronald Reagan's leadership, we Republicans emerged from this convention as a strong, united party, rededicated to the principles that have made our country great. And there has been a spirit of victory in the air this past week here in Detroit. But if that spirit is to be translated into reality, it's up to each and every one of us to help carry Ronald Reagan's message of a strong, free America the length and the breadth of this land. Let there be no mistake, though. Jimmy Carter, though he may have in the past 4 years been a failed president, he is a formidable campaigner who can be expected to use the power of his office to suit his own political ends. And so, my fellow Republicans, I say to you, let's forget the pollsters and forget the pundits and remember only that political victories are hard, dedicated things that come about only by tough work, and that in this crucial election year, the stakes for America and the free world are too great to allow ourselves to become complacent. We have a great mission, not unlike that great mission undertaken by our party 28 summers ago, when another great Republican leader, Dwight Eisenhower, began his campaign to restore the faith of the American people in their government. Dwight Eisenhower, a man of decency, compassion, and strength, led America 3 days ago into a new era of peace, prosperity, and progress. And so will Ronald Reagan, a man of decency, compassion, and strength, lead America into a new era of greatness in this decade of the 1980s. That is the mission, the great mission. All of us working together, joined by millions of disillusioned Democrats and disappointed independents, must undertake in the campaign ahead. My fellow Republicans, This is Ronald Reagan's night. He is the man whom you and the American people are waiting to hear. Let me then conclude these words of acceptance by paraphrasing what I told this convention last evening, just moments before you nominated our party's standard bearer for the presidency. Let us, I said then and I repeat tonight, let us, united in spirit and purpose, go forward from this convention city to make 1980 one of victory, not only for Ronald Reagan and our party, but for the United States of America and the cause of freedom throughout the world. Thank you very, very much.
gentlemen, if you will please be seated, I'm sure you will note that the screen has come down, and that's got to mean to all of us that we have a film prepared for us, and I assure you that the film is not 20 years old.
He grew up in small towns in Illinois, a Midwesterner at heart. His father, Jack, was a salesman who followed jobs that led the family from Tampico, Illinois, to Galesburg, and finally to Dixon. Here, the young boy grew into manhood. And it was here, in America's heartland, that he developed his deep sense of values. The Reagans were a thrifty, hard-working, close-knit family. Luxuries were few and hard to come by. But to young Ron, nicknamed Dutch by his dad, life in Illinois was a rich and happy time. Young Dutch always had to work for spending money and to help out his family. Of all the jobs he had, his favorite was lifeguarding at Lowell Park on the Rock River. After high school, Dutch Reagan landed a football scholarship from the school of his dreams, Eureka College in Eureka, Illinois, sister college of TCU, Texas Christian University. His great loves at Eureka were football, drama, swimming, and making friends on campus and with the people in town. He did what he had to do to make ends meet, everything from washing dishes in a sorority house to coaching the swimming team after classes. Upon graduation, to pay off his student loans, Ron took a job as a sports announcer with a fledgling radio station in Davenport, Iowa, station WOC. His picturesque style of broadcasting let the listener see all the action. His reputation spread quickly, and he soon made the big time. Head sports announcer for WHO Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. Even today, there are a lot of people in the Midwest who remember Dutch Reagan as the voice of the mighty Chicago Cubs and the White Sox. One spring morning, announcer Reagan arrived in California to join the Cubs at their spring training camp. With a deep love for acting, the help of a friend, and a bit of good luck, he was soon offered a contract with Warner Brothers Studios. He became a star who appealed to audiences because he was so clearly one of them. Few knew it at the time, but he was also a peacetime volunteer Army officer. So with the outbreak of World War II, he put aside his career, signed on for active duty, and was transferred to a Special Air Force training film unit. 4 years later, Air Force Captain Reagan returned to Warner Brothers to resume his career. Little did he know that the most challenging period of his life lay just before him. Being a dedicated union man and tireless in his efforts to improve the lot of every working man and woman, he was 6 times elected president of the Screen Actors Guild of the AFL-CIO. As president of the union, Ron Reagan helped bring equity in salaries and working conditions for actors, technicians, extras, cameramen, almost everyone in the industry. More importantly, he single-handedly took on the job of keeping union members in control of the union and prevented a takeover of the film industry by organized crime. This crusade to preserve the freedom of America's working men and women kindled in Mr. Reagan a deep, abiding interest in the processes of our unique Republican form of government. He began to take an active interest in politics, both in California and on the national scene. He had been raised in a Democrat family by a fiercely independent father who was adamant in his love for freedom. In 1952 and 1956, following his own conscience and with a clear view of the dangers facing America, Ron Reagan volunteered as a Democrat for Eisenhower. In 1962, he officially joined the Republican Party. The rest is history. In 1966, answering the call of his party, he was elected governor of California. Next to president, the biggest job in the nation. More people live in California than any other state, It's the #1 producer of everything from farm goods to computer chips, generating 1 out of every $8 of production in this country. If California was a country, it would rank 8th in the world, nearly equaling the total GNP of the United Kingdom. What the new governor inherited was a state of crisis. California was faced with a $194 million deficit and was spending $1 million a day more than it was taking in. The state was on the brink of bankruptcy. Working with teams from all sectors, the unions, banking, agriculture, education, and industry, Governor Reagan got things back on track. His common sense style and strong creative leadership won him a second term in 1970, and he won by one of the biggest landslides in the history of the state. Governor Reagan became the greatest tax reformer in the state's history. His program included property tax relief of over $2 billion. He reduced sales taxes by over $300 million and gave tax rebates of almost $750 million. The San Francisco Chronicle said, "We exaggerate very little when we say that Governor Reagan has saved the state from bankruptcy." When Governor Reagan left office, the $194 million deficit had been transformed into a $554 million surplus. And while saving the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, he improved the quality of life for the people of California. Scholarships for needy students were increased by 500%, student loans by over 900%. His environmental protection program was the nation's toughest. He increased unemployment insurance by almost 60%. The head of the AFL-CIO said this about Governor Reagan: "Governor Reagan has signed AFL-CIO-backed bills for injured and unemployed workers for more than $266 million. No governor, Republican or Democrat, has ever done anything like that." The efficiency and remarkable effectiveness of the government of California under the leadership of Governor Reagan became a model for every state in the Union. This is a man whose time has come, a man whose principles have been familiar to Americans for 30 years, a man whose accomplishments make him the natural choice for President of the United States. A man who believes that the decline of America must be halted and can be halted. A man who rejects the concept of lowered expectations because he believes in the boundless opportunities of the American idea. A man who has prepared himself for strong, creative leadership. Through all the years, the outstanding characteristic of Ronald Reagan has been confidence. Confidence in the triumph of the principles he has consistently defended throughout his personal and political life. This is the man who believes our nation can regain the stature it has lost in the eyes of the world. This is the man who understands the principles that make America great. Above all, he believes in America and the kind of strong, creative leadership that can restore our faith in the future. He calls not for retreat into the past, but for a confident advance into the future. The day Ronald Reagan takes office as President of the United States will be the day when America comes together for a new beginning. Together, a new beginning.
The chair appoints the following distinguished Americans to the committee to escort Governor Reagan to the podium: Senator Howard Baker of Tennessee, Representative Philip Crane of Illinois, Senator Robert Dole of Kansas, Ben Fernandez of California, Senator John Hines of Pennsylvania, and Representative Guy Vanderjack of Michigan. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we have all awaited, the next President of the United States, the Honorable Ronald Reagan of California.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're using up prime time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're singing our song. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're singing our song. Well, the first thrill tonight was to find myself for the first time in a long time in a movie on prime time. But this, as you can imagine, is the second big thrill. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice President-to-be, this convention, my fellow citizens of this great nation, with a deep awareness of the responsibility conferred by your trust, I accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. I do so with deep gratitude, and I think also I might interject on behalf of all of us our thanks to Detroit and the people of Michigan and of this city for the warm hospitality that we've enjoyed. And I thank you for your wholehearted response to my recommendation with regard to George Bush as the candidate for Vice President. I'm very proud of our party tonight. This convention has shown to all America a party united with positive programs for solving the nation's problems. A party ready to build a new consensus with all those across the land who share a community of values embodied in these words: family, work, neighborhood, peace, and freedom. Now, I know that we've had a quarrel or two, but as only as to the method of attaining a goal. There was no argument here about the goal. As president, I will establish a liaison with the 50 governors to encourage them to eliminate, wherever it exists, discrimination against women. I will I will monitor federal laws to ensure their implementation and to add statutes if they are needed. More than anything else, I want my candidacy to unify our country, to renew the American spirit and sense of purpose. I want to carry our message to every American, regardless of party affiliation, who is a member of this community of shared values. Never before in our history have Americans been called upon to face three grave threats to our very existence, any one of which could destroy us. We face a disintegrating economy, a weakened defense, and an energy policy based on the sharing of scarcity. The major issue of this campaign is the direct political, personal, and moral responsibility of Democratic Party leadership in the White House and in the Congress for this unprecedented calamity which has befallen us. They tell us they've done the most that could humanly be done. They say that the United States has had its day in the sun, that our nation has passed its zenith. They expect you to tell your children that the American people no longer have the will to cope with their problems, that the future will be one of sacrifice and few opportunities. My fellow citizens, I utterly reject that view. The American people, the most generous on earth, who created the highest standard of living, are not going to accept the notion that we can only make a better world for others by moving backward ourselves. And those who believe we can have no business leading this nation. I will not stand by and watch this great country destroy itself under mediocre leadership that drifts from one crisis to the next, eroding our national will and purpose. We have come together here because the American people deserve better from those to whom they entrust our nation's highest offices. And we stand united. We stand united in our resolve to do something about it. We need a rebirth of the American tradition of leadership at every level of government and in private life as well. The United States of America is unique in world history because it has a genius for leaders, many leaders on many levels. But back in 1976, Mr. Carter said, "Trust me." And a lot of people did. And now many of those people are out of work. Many have seen their savings eaten away by inflation. Many others on fixed incomes, especially the elderly, have watched helplessly as the cruel tax of inflation wasted away their purchasing power. And today, a great many who trusted Mr. Carter wonder if we can survive the Carter policies of national defense. Trust Me government asks that we concentrate our hopes and dreams on one man, that we trust him to do what's best for us. Well, my view of government places trust not in one person or one party, but in those values that transcend persons and parties. The trust is where it belongs, in the people. The responsibility to live up to that trust is where it belongs, in their elected leaders. That kind of relationship between the people and their elected leaders is a special kind of compact. 360 years ago in 1620, a group of families dared to cross a mighty ocean to build a future for themselves in a new world. When they arrived at Plymouth, Massachusetts, they formed what they called a compact, an agreement among themselves to build a community and abide by its laws. This single act, the voluntary binding together of free people to live under the law, set the pattern for what was to come. A century and a half later, the descendants of those people pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to found this nation. Some forfeited their fortunes and their lives. None sacrificed honor. Fourscore and 7 years later, Abraham Lincoln called upon the people of all America to renew their dedication and their commitment to a government of, for, and by the people. Isn't it once again time to renew our compact of freedom? To pledge to each other all that is best in our lives, all that gives meaning to them for the sake of this our beloved and blessed land. Together, let us make this a new beginning. Let us make a commitment to care for the needy, to teach our children the virtues handed down to us by our families, to have the courage to defend those values and virtues and the willingness to sacrifice for them. Let us pledge to restore in our time the American spirit of voluntary service, of cooperation, of private and community initiative, a spirit that flows like a deep and mighty river through the history of our nation. As your nominee, I pledge to you to restore to the federal government the capacity to do the people's work without dominating their lives. I pledge to you a government that will not only work well, but wisely. Its ability to act tempered by prudence, and its willingness to do good, balanced by the knowledge that government is never more dangerous than when our desire to have it help us blinds us to its great power to harm us. The first Republican president once said, "While the people retain their virtue and their vigilance, no administration by any extreme of wickedness or folly can seriously injure the government in the short space of 4 years." If Mr. Lincoln could see what's happened in the last 3.5 years, he might hedge a little on that statement. But with the virtues that are our legacy as a free people, and with the vigilance that sustains liberty, we still have time to use our renewed compact to overcome the injuries that have been done to America these past 3.5 years. First, we must overcome something the present administration has cooked up, a new and altogether indigestible economic stew. One part inflation, one part high unemployment, one part recession, one part runaway taxes, one part deficit spending, seasoned with an energy crisis. It's an economic stew that has turned the national stomach. Ours are not problems of abstract economic theory. These are problems of flesh and blood, problems that cause pain and destroy the moral fiber of real people who should not suffer the further indignity of being told by the government that it is all somehow their fault. We do not have inflation because, as Mr. Carter says, we've lived too well. The head of a government which has utterly refused to live within its means and which has in the last few days told us that this coming year's deficit will be $60 billion, dares to point the finger of blame at business and labor, both of which have been engaged in a losing struggle, just trying to stay even. High taxes, we are told, are somehow good for us, as if when government spends our money it isn't inflationary, but when we spend it, it is. Those who preside over the worst energy shortage in our history tell us to use less so that we'll run out of oil, gasoline, and natural gas a little more slowly. Well, now, conservation is desirable, of course, but we mustn't waste energy. But conservation is not the sole answer to our energy needs. America must get to work producing more energy. The Republican program for solving economic problems is based on growth and productivity. Large amounts of oil and natural gas lay beneath our land and off our shores untouched because the present administration seems to believe the American people would rather see more regulation, more taxes, and more controls than more energy. Coal offers a great potential. So does nuclear energy produced under rigorous safety standards. It could supply electricity for thousands of industry and millions of jobs and homes. It must not be thwarted by a tiny minority opposed to economic growth, which often finds friendly ears in regulatory agencies for its obstructionist campaigns. Now, make no mistake, we will not permit the safety of our people or our environmental heritage to be jeopardized. But we are going to reaffirm that the economic prosperity of our people is a fundamental part of our environment. Our problems are both acute and chronic. Yet all we hear from those in positions of leadership are the same tired proposals for more government tinkering, more meddling, and more control, all of which led us to this sorry state in the first place. Can anyone look at the record of this administration and say, well done? Can anyone compare the state of our economy when the Carter administration took office with where we are today and say, keep up the good work? Can anyone look at our reduced standing in the world today and say, let's have 4 more years of this? I believe the American people are going to answer these questions as you've answered them in the first week in November, and their answer will be, no, we've had enough. And then it will be up to us, beginning next January 20th, to offer an administration and congressional leadership of competence and more than a little courage. We must have the clarity of vision to see the difference between what is essential and what is merely desirable, and then the courage to bring our government back under control. It is essential. It is essential that we maintain both the forward momentum of economic growth and the strength of the safety net between those in our society who need help. We also believe it is essential that the integrity of all aspects of Social Security be preserved. Beyond these essentials, I believe it is clear our federal government is overgrown and overweight. Indeed, it is time our government should go on a diet. Therefore, my first act as chief executive will be to impose an immediate and thorough freeze on federal hiring. Then we're going to enlist the very best minds from business, labor, and whatever quarter to conduct a detailed review of every department, bureau, and agency that lives by federal appropriation. And we're going to enlist the help and ideas of many dedicated and hard-working government employees at all levels who want a more efficient government just as much as the rest of us do. I know that many of them are demoralized by the confusion and waste they confront in their work as a result of failed and failing policies. Our instructions to the groups we enlist will be simple and direct. We will remind them that government programs exist at the sufferance of the American taxpayer and are paid for with money earned by working men and women, and programs that represent a waste of their money, a theft from their pocketbooks, must have that waste eliminated or that program must go. It must go by executive order where possible, by congressional action where necessary. Everything that can be run more effectively by state and local government, we shall turn over to state and local government along with the funding sources to pay for it. We're going to put an end to the money merry-go-round where our money becomes Washington's money to be spent by states and cities exactly the way the federal bureaucrats tell us it has to be spent. I will not accept the excuse that the federal government has grown so big and powerful that it is beyond the control of any president, any administration, or Congress. We are going to put an end to the notion that the American taxpayer exists to fund the federal government. The federal government exists to serve the American people. On January 20th, we are going to reestablish that truth. Also on that date, we are going to initiate action to get substantial relief for our tax-paying citizens and action to put people back to work. None of this will be based on any new form of monetary tinkering or fiscal sleight of hand. We will simply apply to government the common sense that we all use in our daily lives. Work and family are at the center of our lives, the foundation of our dignity as a free people.